Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Liz Peterson, and she's going to tell us about her after-death communication with her mother. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for the
Thank you
invite.
for, where are you located?
I'm located on a little island in the middle of Puget Sound, just off Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I'm in Ohio, in the sticks, in the middle of a cow field.
Nice. I love that. It's good to be kind of away from everybody and have a little peace and quiet. That's what I like about Vashon. Yeah, it's really quiet here on island.
So start wherever you like and take as long as you like.
Great. Thanks, Peggy.
Mhm.
So, February 11th of last year, my mom passed away. And it was quite sudden. Within 34 hours after my sister had called me saying that my mother needed a ride home from the hospital with a bladder infection. And I had no idea that day that I was going to be going to pick up my mother. And several hours later, she was going to be passing. And it was quite quick between the time I picked her up, got her back to the hospital. That night, they intubated her. Her lungs had filled up with fluid from the IV. And when I showed up the next day, she was, hooked up to all the IVs, intubated, and they were regulating her blood pressure, and she had gone septic. And I'm sitting there, I'm a healer, and I decided to do energy work on my mom. And I sense that her energy is really low. And, I'm thinking, okay, it could be a sedation. It could be that right now her soul is kind of hovering above her body right now because she's in a trauma response, right? And I was, in denial a bit, I admit it, and really hopeful though, really hopeful that she would pull through. And unfortunately, mom didn't pull through. After leaving the hospital that night, I got a call from my sister saying that the hospital had said we could come back and say our goodbyes and to come in. And right before I showed up at the hospital, luckily my sister had showed up to be able to say her goodbyes. But when I showed up, she had just passed. And the communication started almost right away after I left the hospital that night. My sister in London had felt the urge to give me a call. And mind you, it's 8 hours forward in London and it's around midnight my time. And she never contacts me at this hour. Of course, she always waits until it's evening time for her, but she felt the urge to reach out to me. And I really think that, because spirit can sort of press upon us, with thoughts, imagination, mental pictures, urges to do something, ideas that she really pressed upon her to give me a call and say, hey, follow up on that text that you got from your sister the day before. And that was my half sister in London. And then on the drive home that night to the ferry dock, I started getting mental pictures, of something my mom had sent me months previous. She was on Facebook and she had been checking, the feed, and she had seen these really cute glass blown ornaments that you can have made out of your loved one's ashes after they die. And she's like, had called me and said, I saw this really neat thing and I would really love that. And blue's my favorite color. Everything was blue in mom's house. And and that popped into my mind as I'm driving to the ferry boat. And I just knew in that moment that that was her communicating with me after she passed away. And that continued on throughout the night and into the next day.
Okay. So what was that like? What did she have to say? How
Um,
did she communicate?
she communicated with blinking lights. You've heard a spirit can communicate with us by manipulating electricity and lights in the house. And that was one of the ways that she started communicating with me the next morning is the flicker of the light. I had gotten home at about 5 a.m. because I had missed the last ferry boat onto the island and had to catch the first one on. And it was still dark outside when I got home. And the lamp, I checked it, like checked the plug, checked the light bulb. The lamp had never flickered before like this. And I just knew, in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm having this, like mom is trying to communicate with me right now. right? About a week later, I had a water dispenser in my kitchen. And every night the water bubbles would go off. That's normal when you walk by it, the ground moves and it jiggles the container and the air bubbles go up. But when there's no movement in the house and everybody is asleep and the bubbles go off at like in between 1 and 3 a.m., you start to think, okay, this is one of mom's ways of communicating with me. Another way that she did it was sending hummingbirds. The very next day, I'm sitting on the couch in my sunny window, and across from the couch is a doorway that goes down to the basement. And lo and behold, there's a hummingbird shadow in February on the door right in front of me that happened to catch my eye. And my mother loved hummingbirds. She had her hummingbird feeders outside her window. And my older sister, who was a caregiver for her in the last year of her life, she would have her change the hummingbird feeders and stuff. And I had just moved into my new rental in January and hadn't even gotten the hummingbird feeders up yet, or the bird feeders. So it was really a surprise and sort of like, oh my gosh, that's mom. She's letting me know that, she's okay and that she's in transition. And hummingbirds have continued to come around. I have a couple of videos on Instagram actually of me going, you're not going to believe this. I cannot even make this up. Like, I'm sitting in the parking lot waiting for a ferry boat in the middle of winter, and a hummingbird flies by the truck and goes up to the tree and is flying around as I'm getting ready to get on the boat to go see my sister and have coffee with her for the day. So it's just those little messages that kind of come through. She continues in other ways with songs. One of the ways that I receive messages as an intuitive is through song lyrics. And it's called clairaudience, as the way that hearing song lyrics is thought to be perceived through that clairaudience communication. And I would wake up every morning with song lyrics in my head, be walking, past a store in the mall and thinking of mom, and have like the perfect section of the song be playing as I'm walking through the door. And I've woken up on multiple mornings with, and it's just the snippet. It's not the whole song. It's just like a collective of songs like Mom and I, or Your Biggest Fan, or something like that, right? And I have a lot of those examples in my book, Mob Died Last Night, My Shared Death Experience. I've also heard noises. There's been knocking, on the door. I've heard a knocking on the front door one morning, about 3 mornings after she passed away, that woke me up. I've heard her voice saying my name as I'm waking up in the morning, and smells. And my sister and I have both smelled my mother's perfume. It's another way that she communicates with us that she's still around.
I didn't realize there was a name for that. Then you get messages through song lyrics, because I get that, but I didn't know it was a thing. Like, actually had a name to it. What's it called again? Is that
Clairaudience communication?
audience?
So we have 5 clairs that we communicate or receive messages through when we're intuitive or psychic, and really anybody can do this, and it's really, if you want to hear more or see more or feel more, you can train yourself to actually start receiving more messages. And those are clairsentience for clear feeling, claircognizance for clear knowing, hearing sounds, voices, and things is clairaudience. Clairvoyance is clear seeing, and clairgustance is a sense of smell, psychic sense of smell.
Yeah, I often get woke up and the song is playing so clear in my head, as if it's in there, like a song I hadn't heard in forever. The other day it was I'll Have to Say I Love You in a Song. That song. And I can't remember the last time I heard that song. And it's not a song that I was like ever, I mean, it's a nice song, which, not something I ever really dwelled on. But when I do hear it like that, I always got to go pull it up then and listen to it on YouTube.
Yes.
And it makes so much sense then when I hear it. Like, what
it does, doesn't it?
meaning in this song, like I never noticed before.
Yeah, if you go through with mom with spirit communication, like if it's a loved one, I find that it's really just those words that they want to communicate. I find that if it's a message that I need from source, then it's more the song. Sometimes it can just be the line, right? Like one day I was on my way to go on a walk with a friend who needed to discuss something with me, and I flip on the radio right before I get to the hike, and it's, can we just talk? Right? It starts playing over the radio, which is really funny. And then another time where a song came on the radio, and it actually started in my purse. The first time I heard it this evening, I'm driving to pick up my son from soccer, and this song from the 90s comes on that I hadn't listened to in ages, just starts playing in my purse. And it's this Kenny Wayne Shepherd song about having one foot in and one foot out the door. And, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to that a little bit later and kind of check out, what the meaning is. I'll pull up the lyrics. And then after picking him up, we went to a local burger joint and we go inside to order, and the same song is playing over their sound system. I could not believe it. So I definitely looked it up, and a couple of months later, it all made sense. But it's really fascinating how, those things can happen just out of the blue. And it is, when you go and read the lyrics, they really apply to what's going on in your life at that point. So really pay attention, everybody. If you're hearing those songs or waking up with song lyrics, they actually mean something. Yeah, I had, ever since New Year's Eve, Come On Home Girl stuck in my head for 15 days. It just stopped a couple days ago. And I'm like, okay, what is the message here? I keep having this song stuck in my head, like an earworm, like you would get when you hear a song and then you can't get it out of your head. And if I'm like, okay, maybe it's, I have to go home, and I'm going home to see my dad next week. So I think since, it's coming up, it was like, yes, this is a good thing. You're going to see your dad. Go, come on home, girl. And then the week before I'm to see my dad, it subsides, it stops, which I think is no coincidence.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I went to bed and I was praying. It's like, I don't know what got into my head that night. I was thinking, I was telling God, I just would like to see you, like some presence of you, and just a stupid prayer, it was like dumb, like who's going to see God, right? And in the middle of that praying, or I was about done praying, my husband yells, "You got to come see this. You got to come." And I, what? We live in the country. What could possibly be that I need to go see? And I'm thinking, I got to get up. I was just starting to doze off again. And he takes me on the front porch, and there is a white owl on the tree limb. And so I took pictures and video. I've lived here almost 40 years, and I've never seen an owl.
Wow, that's amazing. There's your sign right there.
And it's just sat there for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, source communicates through animals, birds. With my mom, I saw a cardinal when I was visiting my dad last time, which was amazing. My son and I came out of a care center where we had been visiting a family member, and a butterfly flew up in our face and flew around my youngest and I for a solid minute. My youngest was just amazed. He's like, "Are you serious? Is this really happening?" I'm like, we were the flower, right? And then it goes up and lands on the gutter right above our heads. It was just astonishing. And just today, before I'm going on for this interview, I'm seeing eagles all over the place, like in the front yard as I'm standing there with my tea. And that was one of the signs that Source gave me actually before my mother passed away. And this is how you know it's a sign, is when some things are showing up in unusual ways. Like, it's not just, oh, there's an eagle flying in the sky, or, there's an eagle, he's like circling around to get his dinner or something like that, right? It's, driving down the road and having an eagle flying in front of you the whole way down the road. That happened to me before my mom passed. And then a couple days after that, I'm driving towards my house, and an eagle, and there's woods on both sides, flies right in front of my car, like right in front of my windshield. And then on the way to the hospital on Friday to sit with my mother by her bedside, there was an eagle and a hawk, flying in their own circles over top of the freeway as I'm getting close to the hospital. And it's those moments right there where there are signs from source. It's communicating, okay, here's the eagle. What does the eagle mean to you? For me, it's strength. So looking at that eagle and be like, okay, I have the strength in order to do this, or this is the right moment at the right time, or this interview should be happening, because that's part of the plan. of your future.
We were coming home one night a couple years ago, getting ready to pull in our driveway. I was like, I have never seen that before. There was a rainbow in front of the moon. And I took a picture of it. It was just so beautiful. And as soon as I saw it, I thought somebody's going to die. Like they're communicating with me or something. I felt this has to be a sign of some kind. And I noticed one NDE kept popping in my mind. And I looked on his Facebook and he had passed away.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when those
And
signs happen and that person pops in, that's when you know.
now, how did you know? Was you like a young child and you started to see things, or what was this like for you?
Yeah, when I was younger, I did have vision. I could actually see spirit outside of just being able to see it in my mind's eye. I remember one night I woke up and we had two twin beds in our bedroom, and there was a window in between our beds. And I woke up in the middle of the night, as I usually did, and rolled over, and there was a white woman sitting by my sister's head looking out the window, and she turned to me and went, shh. And it turned back looking out the window, and being young and sort of afraid of those things, it's immediately under the covers and forget about getting out of
Right.
bed. That's one of the nice ones. And then I had a not so nice one where I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a dark shadow next to my bed, and it raised its hands above its head and came down onto my solar plexus, and I actually like air out of my body up in the bed, yelling for mom. And that was a situation around, I would say, in between like 9 and 12, where it just scared. It was so scary, I turned it off. So I couldn't see anymore after that, but I could feel and sense that they were still in the room. I lived in a very active area on the eastern shore of Maryland, Cambridge, and the Algonquin Indians used to be there. Underground Railroad was there. There's a lot of history there on the peninsula, lots of activity going on. So there was never not something going on in my house. Like a door would open to the bedroom. We'd hear footsteps. One time my younger sister got home and the hot water was turned on all the way where it hadn't been, when people left the house. So it was a very active house. And it wasn't until I would say about 2017, 16, 15 or 16, that vision really turned back on for me, being able to see outside of my mind's eye with spirit. And that happened. I was actually in an athletic club on the elliptical, and I'm just, going about my business, exercising, listening to music. And I noticed that there's someone standing, kind of behind me, which was interesting that I could see behind me, right off to the right, because it's beyond the peripheral vision. And nobody had been, it was really quiet in the athletic club that day, nobody upstairs. And it was the spirit of this young man who was the same age as my oldest son, who had passed away. And he used to work out all the time in the athletic club. And they know when your light is on and when you're bright, and they can communicate. And I'm just like, oh, hi. How are you doing? And just like surprised that there he was standing at the edge of my aura, trying like, hello, I'm here. Can you see me? I'd like to communicate with somebody.
You
Yeah.
mentioned Underground Railroad. Do you think there's some connections? The house I grew up as a child had been part of the Underground Railroad. It's Constitution, Ohio. I mean, they got a monument there and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of spirits who had lots of difficult things happen that sometimes are sort of stuck or hanging out. They may be repeating a life cycle over and over again. There's also where the situation in life had made such a strong impact that it leaves an impression on the environment. So it can actually be a loop of the energy that was left behind from a situation as well. So there's several different ways that can show up in areas that had varying difficulty in one direction or another, for sure.
I bought that house. It's just an old shack there several years ago, and I gutted it. I felt there's something under the floor, like there's nothing there. And now I'm at the point I bought the property next to it. And I'm wanting to build a NDE research center. And I'm like, do I tear this old ugly shack down? But I feel like I can't, and I don't know why. It's just an eyesore,
Uh-huh.
but I feel like if it's gone, something here's gone. And my grandparents owned it before my parents did. But I don't know. I was telling my husband, this morning, I don't know what it is about this. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to, what's it called? Refurbish it, like restore it. That's
Restore
the
it.
word. Yeah. Like, why? I don't know, but I feel like I'm supposed to, so I probably will.
It would be beautiful to restore, a piece of history, but there can also be a situation where the spirits in the area are impressing upon you to not tear it down, to restore it, to take care of it, to sort of like cherish that moment in time that it existed. You
Yeah.
can also go and do a clearing on it, do a clearing on the building and the property too, and see if that shifts the energy around it.
How you do that?
You can have someone come in and do that clearing for you, or you can try to do it yourself with some sage. It really is around intention. Intention is everything. So if we intend for something to happen and go through that process, it's that intention that really takes care of it. So, like going through with the sage and sweetgrass or whatever is indigenous to your area, and going through and just intending, I clear this space of all negative energy, only good energy and good spirit shall remain, and go through like every corner, every window, the doorway, and clear it and see if, anything shifts with it. You can also bring a healer in, an energetic healer or a shaman, or someone who's native to the area can come in and work with the energy of the property. Is also a good idea.
Is the intention to get rid of negative energy? Is that the intention with that, or
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah. Or clear past energy. It's whatever you feel like you need to do for the area.
Okay.
Yes. But
So
that's
what do
really
you
interesting.
so what do you do now?
I am an intuitive healer. So I do energy work sessions. I also do readings for people, which are psychic oracle readings and aura paintings I can do, where I read your aura and at the same time give you an oracle reading. I also have a podcast called Raise the Vibe with Liz that interviews psychics and mediums and healers, inspirational speakers, personal growth leaders.
Didn't you interview Raymond
And
Moody
I
recently?
did. Oh, he was
Awesome.
fantastic. Yeah, it was a great interview. Yeah, a couple months ago.
I would love to have him on. I had his brother-in-law, Dr. Morse, Melvin
Mhm.
Morse on, and he was supposed to get me Dr. Moody, but I had him
Oh,
scheduled years ago when I was with IANS. We started ISGO, and I had him scheduled and a bunch of other people, and then I left IANS, so I never got him rescheduled. So it's kind of like on my to-do list.
oh, you should do that. I loved him. You will love hosting him. Actually did a talk for ISGO December 17th. It was a really great experience. Yeah, I love that organization. I'm thinking about going to teach or give a talk at the IANS conference that's coming out this year.
Where's it going to be?
I'm not exactly sure. I got
Virginia.
the invitation, but
I
I
think
haven't
somebody
made
said
research further
Virginia.
than that.
I forget where in Virginia.
Oh, I can head back home.
I was all ready to go last year. I had about a dozen interviews scheduled with people that were going to be there, mostly my
Mhm.
past guests and the vice president of IANS and stuff. And we had an emergency come up, so I canceled everything. But yeah, I was
Nice.
going to go do it.
I would recommend talking to Jan Holden. She's really great. She's with IAMS. And
I
I've done a
spoke
couple
there
of
in
her.
2017 in Denver on
Nice.
a panel. That's the same time I went. I was scheduled to speak another year and I canceled. So drama, drama, drama.
Yeah. I've also had Elka McCartney and her husband, she and her husband, who's passed now, both gave talks for IAMS. And Elka actually is the one that did the editing on my book for me and referred me over to Betty and Angela over at IANS for an interview. Yeah, great. It's
Yeah, and
great.
I think it's
At
about
IANS is great.
where you're at, like more new age, I think, tend to go in that direction. And a lot of more Christian
Mhm.
tend to go in another direction anymore, starting to because as a Christian, I just wasn't really welcome. They didn't want, that.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry to hear that.
so
I
I
had
mean,
an
I started
experience.
this.
I had an experience just recently, speaking of Christian. I grew up Christian. And one of my favorite stories to tell is when I went to a retreat for a week and we were doing a shamanic ceremony. And at the end of the ceremony, they cover you up with a shroud and you go into a deep meditation. And during the meditation, I saw my mom, and then behind my mom appears this beautiful white light. And then in the light appears Jesus, and he's standing there next to my mom with his, palms facing forward, looking beautiful and shiny as he does. And it was just such a peaceful experience to see mom with Jesus in the light and know that she's okay, she's at peace. And, it just had this very grounding, loving, overwhelming, like peaceful feeling about it.
You
It
said
really
palm-
surprises me.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's because our belief systems and all the images that we've seen over the years, we expect to see like Jesus or Mary Magdalene or Mary standing in a certain position, right? So I think that definitely influenced my vision, of course.
I think I think they're guided visions and experiences. We all see these different things. There's a sequence and a lot of similarities, but it just seems like I've caught myself saying, instead of just saying I went through the tunnel, like I was shown the tunnel, instead of just saying I was shown, because I'm feeling like there is a presence guiding what I see and what I experience in those experiences. You said Jesus palms forward. I never heard that before. Is that something that normally Jesus has, like palms forward? Or?
I'm not sure, but that's how I saw him, almost like he was sending energy my way or letting me know, just in a very, when someone can stand and hold space for you, they're usually palms forward for you when they're doing energy work or holding Reiki or something like that. So it really felt like there was like this holding of presence, the holding of grounding energy for mom, holding of peace is really what it felt like.
Okay. I caught my ear because the other day I was told my NDE for the umpteenth time, and I always say, while I'm in heaven, I'm sobbing at Jesus' feet, I always see my hands come up in front of my face. And I got thinking, I wonder if there's some significance that the palms to my face.
Did you have a head injury?
No, I died of tubal pregnancy, internal bleeding.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But but my hands are in front of my face, so that let me know that I'm in a physical body, because when I first got there, I was invisible. My hands in front of my face, and I was like pleading like that, like, who else will teach them about you? And I guess it was just a mannerism. But
there can be a thing too when you're lucid dreaming. One of the ways that you realize that you're lucid dreaming is that you see your hands.
Really?
And then you can say, oh, that's my hand. I'm in a dream. And that's one of the ways that you can go from just dreaming and not being a participant in your dream to like realizing you are dreaming and then being a participant in your dream. That's really fascinating.
I had just got to the emergency room. I was in the wheelchair. I died. And so all this happened within seconds. So, like there's no way I, was dreaming or anything. It was like,
wow.
So I was just curious when you said some things that my ears perked up. So
that's really interesting. I wonder if that is, a signal to your conscious mind or your consciousness that was outside of your body for a split second when you die to bring you back into physical form. Like, because normally, unless we're standing in front of a mirror, we're not seeing ourselves except for our hands and arms or feet as they're walking out in front of us. I find that very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Peggy.
Yeah, because at first I'm invisible and I can see 360 in the bright white light. And then I see a physical me across from me. So there's like two me's now, because there's this invisible orb, but I'm watching. I always see it the same way. Across from me is physical me, like blurting out all this stuff to God, like why I can't stay here. I got to take care of my kids. And then I see Jesus just from behind, and I join him and we dip down. But I don't look down and see him. I just feel the movement. I feel my body, that I'm now in this body. But when I come back, and then we're over the trailer looking down into the future at my boys, and we dip down, and I know there's a physical me. But when I'm back in heaven, there's just this physical, that invisible orb is no longer. And then, but when I see my hands, I think that's the first time I like looked and I could see this physical body. So
Wow.
I got wondering just the other day, I wonder if there's some reason. And then you said palms out. What's that mean?
Interesting.
Because I'm
Did you see any
constantly,
family members?
no, no,
I asked
no,
because I was sitting next.
other than when Jesus and I went and we looked in the future, it was my three boys down there when they were little. And they were talking about the fact that mom had died. So it was a future that never happened. So, for decades, I didn't understand that. How do
Wow.
you go in the future and see an event that would happen if you died? Which I had just said to God in the bright white light, okay, like I agree to stay. If you can show me that my kids will be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg to return. Not knowing that Jesus, okay, fine, we'll take you down future and we'll look. That's what it was like. And so later, when I'm like, what in the world was that? I never heard of NDE, so completely thrown to what sense do you make of something that you can't even speak of? Because, later when I tried to speak of it, the words that come out of your mouth, even like you telling your mom, I'm sure by that age, you're already experienced and discussing these things, but when you have
Mhm.
something happen and like in 1986, before anybody ever heard of this stuff,
Right.
cuckoo.
It's a phenomenal example that time is an illusion, though. And it's a great example, being a healer, I often am doing work in our past, and then I can send energy to the future as well. And it's just a great example of, that there is a plan, when people are talking about, say, the Akashic records or our divine plan, or feeling in alignment with what we're meant to be, our soul's work, that there is a plan, for our life. And even when people talk about, oh, I remember sitting at a table before I was incarnated and planning out my life with the people I was going to be in this life with, that's that plan. And you're a glimpse into, okay, this is one of the roads that, could happen, because I think there's possibilities, right? It's not just one way, that there's possibilities depending on what decisions we make, right? Because we have free will. So, and with free will, there can be possibility. So there has to be possibilities within our divine plan. But I think that that's a phenomenal example of, there is a future, there is a plan. And if this happens, if you chose that exit point, then that's what the future would be.
Why do you think there is a plan? Like you would think like, okay, we're born, you just do whatever you want, and we hear all this like there, and it feels that way. Like we're meant to, just like me, like I'm meant to fix this old house up, like,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any explanation?
I can share my own belief system around
Okay,
that.
sure.
I think it's a great question. And I really do think that we do have a plan. And I think coincidence really shows that when we have coincidence in our life or synchronicities in our life, which show us, that there are no accidents, or they could be glimpses into our plan. Because it's like, I like to look at life like we have all of these people and all these people in our lives, and we're going into people's lives and coming out of people's lives and bumping into strangers and making new friends. And we all become this weave of life. And we all, if we look back, have made an impact in one way or another on a person's life. Maybe in a direction that they were headed, or maybe it was just they were having a bad day and you gave them a smile and it completely like turned their day around, right? I really do think that we play a role in each other's lives. And moving forward, I've had many examples in my life where people have walked up to me and said just the perfect thing at the perfect time to get me where I needed to go next. And coincidences and synchronicities as well, that kind of play the same role in my life and around that belief system.
I think I just realized why I'm supposed to do that. It's, yeah. I think, I hope I don't start crying. My parents divorced when I was 10. I'm the youngest of five, and our lives were just like destroyed after that. And I think because my grandparents owned that house before, and my dad's passed away. My mom's 88, she'll probably pass soon. And I feel like I'm supposed to get me and my siblings together for one more Christmas
Wow.
because we
Oh my
all
God.
lost our childhood when we left that house. And I feel like we were going to be all old, but like we need one more Christmas. Like we need closure. Like our childhood was gone, like stolen from us. And bitter divorce. And my mom got a new husband, is very abusive. And one by one, they all ran away. And horror story. But then I
I'm
feel
so
like
sorry.
I could picture all of us getting together for a Christmas like we did when we were kids. And somehow that would heal us.
I got goosebumps when you said that, which are my truth bumps, is what I tell my clients when I'm giving them readings, and my body just lights up with goosebumps. It's just right on point. That's beautiful. I'm so sorry you had that experience, Peggy. That's really difficult to come out of.
And it's so funny looking at you because you look like my sister.
I know. I resonance with you too. I'm like, okay,
Because we got the same
I've
eyes.
seen her before. Yeah.
So, how do you think people can get more in touch with what is around us? Because, a lot of people will have a voice will come in and give them a warning. Oh, I don't think that was true. These kind of things. Any advice on how we can get more in touch with our psychic abilities?
Oh, you're back.
Yeah. Did you hear me? Or did I freeze?
Just part of it.
Okay. Any advice on how we can all get more in touch with our own psychic abilities? Listen to those voices coming in, recognizing the signs.
Yes. And of course, grief is a portal to opening up that communication, right? Because it breaks us open, and it shuts down our defense systems and kind of opens our heart to that communication. But there are other ways that we can learn how to communicate too. And that's realizing that, that gut instinct that you feel is our instinct and our birthright. So learning how to pay attention to that, because a lot of us growing up, we're taught not to pay attention to that, right? I'll apologize to this person when we, shouldn't apologize to this person because our parents want us to do good in the world and want us to be the good kid, and we should apologize, but we're not trusting our gut about this person. So we learn how to turn that off. So it's really learning how to turn that back on again. How do we turn back on our intuition? It's by paying attention to our gut. When we start to have an uneasy feeling in our stomach, pay attention to that. When we get ideas in our heads, pay attention to those. Those are little signals to what's going on, because we're big antenna. We're huge receivers of information. That's basically what our energy field actually is. Our aura and our chakras is our antenna. We're receptors, and we're constantly receiving information from outside sources. When you're looking at somebody and you're getting an uneasy feeling about a person, that's your body, your physical body picking up that this person might not be so good, right? Or you get a thought, okay, this person's not so good. Pay attention to that thought. Or you get a mental image, like a little movie camera or a little movie in your head. Pay attention to that too. A lot of imagery comes in when I'm working with my clients. My client the other day, she was experiencing something and she didn't know if she was going to be successful or not. And I saw this man running a marathon and going through the ribbon with his hands up and the crowd cheering. So I'm like, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to get through the finish line. Everything's going to be great. So it's those mental pictures too that we get. And also, like, pay attention to what we're hearing. And sometimes the thoughts and the hearing can kind of go hand in hand together, where you're like, did I just hear that? An example of that for me was, let's see, one night I'm driving home from a yoga meditation class, and I go, when you start kind of driving on autopilot, you're kind of spacing out. And I heard, "Are you ready?" And when I heard that, it just popped me out. Like Yes. Yes, I'm ready. Yes for my energy work, business to thrive, and yes for my abilities to open up even more so I can work more with my clients. And a couple months later, it ended up being something different that I should have been ready for. But it's those little things that we have to pay attention to. Yeah.
It's hard. Like maybe some people it's easy, but it's hard for me to
Mhm.
know. Sometimes it's like so black and white. It's like it won't leave me alone. It's you guys are gonna do what it says. But other times it's not so black and white.
Years and years, Peggy, it took me to trust my intuition because I was raised in a small town, patriarchal, do what you are told, sit and be quiet, don't challenge, say yes, sir, no, ma'am, and totally like cut off all my instinct and just be good, right? And do good. And it's learning to trust that inner voice. I think a lot of us are grown up with hearing or raised with hearing, are you sure? And that statement alone makes you doubt your own intuition, makes you doubt your own gut feeling, right? If you're constantly being asked, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Then you grow up, you're like, not sure. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. Right? I'm never sure. And it's like reparenting yourself to learn how to trust yourself. And it took me years, Peggy, like 20 years of work to really trust myself again.
I've been going to the bank lately. Gonna buy something and I have the paper right there. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I just said, I'm not going in, and I just drive away. And I'm still thinking about it because I'm not sure.
And we still do it. And I think those are opportunities too for us to like ask for the sign. Source, angels, guides, whoever you speak to, like, am I supposed to do this? Should give me a sign if I'm supposed to do this. And like wait for that picture to show up on your Instagram feed or Facebook feed, or wait for that email to show up that says the perfect thing, or maybe some stranger will walk up to you and say something that you're supposed to hear that will give you the clue. Those are ways that we can do that too. Really like pray about it. Communicate with source about, am I supposed to be doing this? Give me a sign if it's a yes. Yeah, if we need help trusting ourselves.
One day I was watching TV and Faith Hill video come on. Hey baby, let's go to Vegas. And I said, let's go to Vegas and get married. My husband like, okay. So we did 25 years ago. But when we got there, all of a sudden I got cold feet. Like I was all gung ho, and I'm like, I'm scared. And so I started drinking, and he's like, "You gotta get drunk to marry me." Yeah, just get me there, and it'll be fine. It's just like I don't know how Vegas. I don't know anything about Vegas. Where do you go? What do you do? You set it up and just take me there. So he had this white limo come pick me up, and had his whole package set up and the flowers and the pictures. That's good. But
That's
I
awesome.
froze.
And isn't it amazing, like in the moment when you saw that Faith Hill video, that you were like, yes, that's what I want to do. Like you knew. But when you let your mind take over, when you got to Vegas, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. I'm learning. Right choice. I think we have to scoot our brains out of the way sometimes, and just let our hearts lead the way.
Yeah, it does. Like our brain jumps in there. And I think that's what's happening when I go to the bank. It's like, I want to do this, but like my brain starts, what if you regret what? And it's not that much money. It's like, it's like putting the faith in something that I don't, what it is, I'm hiring somebody to do the script from my book.
Oh, nice.
And I really was praying that this guy would agree to do it. And then we've been talking and he agreed, and he sent me the invoice, and I don't know what's wrong with me. It's $7,000, right? And then, to get it started, it'll be more later, but, and I'm like, just walk in the bank because he's in another country. So I've never done that before. And I think that's what it is. It's like when I get married, I think I send my husband in to do it because it's just like, I need somebody else to do this. I want it done, but I'm scared to go in and do it. I mean, I went and
You
got
know,
bank loans before for the house and for this. Yeah, that's not, I don't know what it is. It's just like, I'm really shy about
something
this.
might be telling you though. Your
Could be.
intuition might be telling you, or it could be your mind getting in the way because you've heard of experiences with other people where they've had bad experiences, right? So then you're worried because
Yeah,
it's out of the country, and out of the country automatically triggers that something might not be okay just right there. And what you
yeah.
could do, actually, I do a practice that I learned from Kevin Todeschi, who I interviewed not that long ago. And what you do is you write it down on a piece of paper, what you want to know, and stick it next to your bed. So you can write down, am I supposed to do this? Is this for my highest and best good? And sit it next to your bed or under your pillow. And when you go to sleep that night, you'll have a dream. I remember about a year ago, I was thinking about buying property in Maryland, by my dad. And it was this cute little house, and I could have rented it out when I wasn't there. And I'm like, okay, should I do this? So I wrote down on the piece of paper, should I put an offer in on this house? And I stuck it next to the bedside. Well, that night I had a dream that I was in the house, and there was a little shed in the backyard. And in the shed, there were these people with all these weapons. And I went out there and they tossed me a gun. And there was all this like commotion going on in the back of the yard by the fence. And I woke up and I'm like, okay, if I put an offer on this house, it's going to be drama. Is basically what that told me, that this is not a good idea to put an offer on this house at this time. Like, that's not a good decision. If I had gone out and we had had like a huge family picnic in the backyard, I'm sure that would have been a yes in the dream, right? But no, it was a little bit different than that. So I think I got my answer for sure. And I did not put an offer in on that house. Yeah. So I recommend doing that. Or, asking for a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I recently bought property next to that little shack I had bought a long time ago. Happened to be in the courthouse. And I said, well, look up on the maps there and see who owns that property next to mine. So I called him, and the lady says, you know what? I'd love to get rid of that. It's $1,000 too much. Like, I got a house and a garage and a third acre for $1,000. And
That's
everybody's like,
amazing.
what? And the lawyers that did up the paperwork was like, did you get this for 1,000? I just called her. So, I mean, it's a little
That's
old piece
awesome.
of crap, but it borders my
Mhm.
property. And so,
Yeah. See, when it's meant to be, everything falls into place. That's also how we know, right? If it's
yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss, or you have a book?
I do. So my book is called Mom Died Last Night, My Shared Death Experience. It's a memoir of death, grief, and afterlife communication. And it talks all about my mother's death process. It talks about, I go in great detail, personal detail about my grief and what that experience was like, to help other people with their grief experiences, because I think a lot of people don't talk about it. There's a lot of things in society that we don't talk about. I mean, we have all of these words for death, but we never really say death or died. We say passing, they transitioned, right? So it's really, opening up that conversation. And then, of course, the afterlife communication, that I experienced with my mom, the hummingbirds and the cardinals and the bubbles in the water filter and the knocks and hearing her voice. And the communication continues to this day. So just letting people know that that there is more to life, that there's life after death, and life does continue on. And I think having these experiences with my mom has really eased my grief, over the last year. And it's opened family members' eyes to afterlife experiences, that there is more to life after death, that our lives do continue on.
And what's
Yeah.
your podcast called again?
My podcast is called Raise the Vibe with Liz, and you can find my book on Amazon. It's live on Amazon in ebook form and paperback, and I'm going to be working on an audiobook as well in the future. And then my podcast is called Raise the Vibe with Liz. It's on all major platforms, and I premiere all of my shows on YouTube, and then post information about my show and my healing work and my reading work and the book on Facebook and Instagram at Raise the Vibe with Liz.
And your website, what's it called? Is it
Liz's,
also?
it's called Liz's Healing Touch. And in the future, I will have another one called Raise the Vibe with Liz next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was nice meeting you.
It was great meeting you too, Peggy. Thanks so much for having me on. This has been a fun conversation.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.